I get it, you're staring at a list of best desktop videos, trying to figure out if you should drop a few $100 on a new machine or keep making do with the old tower that started humming like a reluctant bee. My friend Jess called me the other day, saying she needed something that could handle a handful of design projects, a couple of Zoom calls, and the occasional gaming session without turning her living room into a heatsink. She was scared of overpaying for a PC that would sit idle most of the week, but also worried about ending up with a box that would lag the moment she opened Photoshop. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. That's why I spent a solid afternoon digging into the DP180 AI. It's not just another pre-built good enough rig, it's a desktop that leans on Intel's newest Core Ultra 7 with AI boost and pairs it with an RTX 5060. The combo sounds flashy, but what does it actually mean for someone who's not a hardcore gamer but still wants the occasional graphics-heavy workload? First off, let's talk about the day-to-day. I set the DP180 up on my own desk, connected the usual peripherals, and launched a typical work session, a web browser with a dozen tabs, Microsoft Teams for a video call, and Adobe Lightroom open with a batch of raw files. The 16 GB of DDR5 memory lived up to its promise. There was no noticeable slowdown when I switched between the apps. Lightroom's preview generation, which can be a nightmare on lower-end machines, ran smoothly, and the AI boost in the Core Ultra processor seemed to help with the automatic tagging feature, shaving a few seconds off what would otherwise be a manual chore. Now, where the RTX 5060 actually shines is when you dip your toe into gaming or graphic design that leans on GPU acceleration. I fired up a recent indie title that uses Vulkan, and the frame rates were solidly above 60 frames per second at 1080p with medium settings. For a desktop that's marketed more toward productivity, that's a pleasant surprise. The same GPU also accelerated a quick render in DaVinci Resolve, cutting the export time by roughly 20% compared to my older workstation that only has an integrated graphics chip. If you're a freelancer who occasionally needs to spin up a video or a 3D mockup, that GPU can be a real time saver without forcing you to buy a separate workstation. One of the things that caught my eye while researching was the internal layout. MSI advertises easy internal access for hardware upgrades, and the truth is, it's not just marketing fluff. The side panel slides off with a single thumb screw, exposing the RAM slots, M.2 slots, and power connectors. I swapped the stock 256GB SSD for a 1TB NVMe drive in about 10 minutes, and the system recognized it right away. For anyone who likes to keep their rig a little future-proof, that upgrade path is genuine value, especially when you consider how quickly storage needs can balloon with large media files. On the connectivity side, the 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port is a nice, often overlooked feature. My home internet runs at around 800 megabits per second, and the wired connection consistently hit the top of that speed, eliminating any hiccups during large file transfers to NOS. If you work with cloud-based assets or need to push big video files to clients, that faster wired link can shave minutes off what would otherwise be an hour-long upload. But it's not all smooth sailing. The DP180 runs Windows 11 Home out of the box, which is fine for most users, but it does mean you won't get the extra management tools that come with pro features like BitLocker or group policy that some small business owners rely on. If you're in a corporate environment that mandates those, you'll have to upgrade the OS separately, adding a few $100s to the total cost. Also, while the system is relatively quiet for a desktop with a dedicated GPU, the fans do ramp up noticeably when you push the RTX 5060 hard, like during a long gaming session or a heavy GPU render. It's not a screaming fan, but if you're planning on a silent office setup, you might need to look into a third-party cooling solution or accept the low-level hum. Another practical consideration is the port selection. You get the usual HDMI and DisplayPort outputs, plus a couple of USB-C ports that support data and DisplayPort alternate mode. However, there's only one USB-C on the front, and the rest are USB-A. If you're used to a modern laptop with a cluster of USB-C, you'll need a dongle or a hub for newer peripherals. It's a minor inconvenience, but something to keep in mind if you've invested in a USB Conley monitor or a fast external SSD that runs over USB-C. So, who should walk away with this machine? If you're a creative professional, think graphic designers, video editors, or photographers who need a reliable workhorse that can also dabble in gaming, the DP180 hits a sweet spot. The AI boost helps with tasks like photo tagging, and the RTX 5060,